Every once in a while, you see just how easy it is to manipulate the American people, to take seemingly smart, wonderful, thinking human beings and turn us into puppets, sheep, lemmings, or perhaps all three combined into some sort of peepings. I mean, individually, people are great, but in groups, they do things like make Transformers the #1 movie on the planet. It's just explosions and then explosions and some and it's based on an action figure for 6-year-olds, all right? It's because toddlers like cars and they like guns, and so they put the guns on the cars. It's not meant for adults! A year ago, you might recall, the American people were against bombing in Syria. We were tired of bombing other countries, tired of death and disaster. According to polls by the Washington Post and ABC News, only 30% of America supported bombing in Syria a year ago. And in June of this year, only 45% of Americans supported bombing in Iraq. And then something funny happened. This.
Massacre if those ISIS terrorists break through.
Overrun by ISIS.
Convert them or kill them.
ISIS in particular.
The Islamic State.
ISIS.
ISIS.
They are like a medieval army.
Well, not funny, ha-ha. More of a funny, holy shit. Our media lost its damn minds like a diseased coyote in the desert heat. So what happened after the ISIS media onslaught that made the Geico advertising seem like a casual mention? The percentage of Americans supporting bombing in Iraq skyrocketed to 70%, and those in favor of bombing Syria jumped to 65%. When our government and media want to manufacture consent for endless murdering, they know how. They have it down to an art, like Serena Williams with a cross-court forehand, or this lady with that thing she's doing, down to an art. Like Dick Cheney with lying, or these people bending like that, down to an art. Media, manufacturing consent, down to an art. Like that dude, whatever's going on there, right? Or here, you know, down to an art. And it's come out now that some of the threats they told us about have already been proven false. Glenn Greenwald reported this week that the Khorasan group, which were supposed to be worse than ISIS, were made up. Government officials just created it out of their imagination, like the Muppets, or SpongeBob SquarePants, or Mark Zuckerberg's respect for privacy, or other imaginary things. So we're bombing in the Middle East for a make-believe reason. Why does that sound familiar? Oh, right. Right, that's why it sounds familiar. Well, this time we found out we went to war for false reasons within a few weeks. Last time it was like years. So you know what that's called? Progress. Here's my point. Clearly, the mainstream media can manufacture consent for war. Just imagine if they ever use that unbelievable power to push something positive, something related to creation instead of destruction, like moving past excess consumerism or demanding accountability from the bankers raping and pillaging our society with impunity, or stressing that our lives should be about so much more than slaving for a soulless company, or instituting a maximum age for saying Transformers is your favorite movie. And I don't just mean a little story on one of these topics. I mean pounding away at them day in and day out, the way we do for war. Every day, new reports on what your life should really be about, rather than just the new iPhone. You know, if your current iPhone is working fine, why not stick with that one for another year? I mean, it's not like you're a brain surgeon. You park cars at a parking deck, and the old iPhone works fine for that, all right? You did fine for that. You're not using it to park cars. You're using it to type, hey, babe, when am I going to see that fat again? Which could be sent just as well with the A7 processor versus the new A8 processor. Our mainstream media has the ability to change the world for the better, and instead it highlights war, fear, death, and blind nationalism. Well, I take that back. Once a year, CNN has their CNN Heroes episode, but if you Google CNN Heroes, most of the top photos are of Miley Cyrus. Not kidding. However, she was clearly told to keep her tongue in her mouth during it, so that's something, but I don't know. Does that qualify as being a hero? Really? Probably not. By that metric, Tiger Woods is a hero every time he keeps his dick in his pants. Which has to be a slight devaluation of the term, I feel like. But you get the point, I think. Coming to you from Washington, D.C., the belly of the beast, this is Redacted Tonight! Welcome to Redacted tonight. How's my live quasi-apathetic audience doing? All right. I'm your host, Lee Camp. Now let's take the news from behind. As massive pro-democracy protests grow in Hong Kong, China has shut down Instagram in order to stem the tide of viral photographs of the crowds and sometimes brutal police response. This is the same thing that was done on a smaller scale in the U.S. by police at Occupy protests. And just last week, the inventor of the World Wide Web, computer scientist Tim Berners-Lee, warned that the freedom of the internet is under threat. So I did a little research. I checked out Tim Berners-Lee on Twitter and found that he has roughly 42 million fewer Twitter followers than Lady Gaga. And Lady Gaga has 42.4 million followers. And this guy invented the damn web. What the hell do you have to do to get followers on Twitter? Apparently drape yourself in raw meat is the only thing that works. Sir Berners-Lee, the sir is because he was knighted, tweets about things like creating a sustainable digital ecology, whereas Lady Gaga, the lady is because she said so, tweets things like naked bedtimes, having a romance with my sheets, tired babies need rest. Anyway, Sir Berners-Lee called for an internet bill of rights that would guarantee users' privacy and independence. He said if a government can block you from certain sites, they can give you a false view of reality, a false sense of the world. For example, if all bestiality websites were censored, you might think you were the only one doing it, you know? And that'd be sad for you, right? And furthermore, a lot of protests we've seen over the past few years gain their strength from social media. We have a chance of making international internet bill of rights happen if we can just get Lady Gaga to tweet about it. I think we could solve this. That got you a little sad, I feel like, because you were like, that's not happening. No. And that Bill of Rights might also be useful because recently it's been reported that Google is monitoring and recording everywhere you go. Apparently, as long as your location setting is activated on your phone, Google knows when and where you've been anywhere. You can simply log into a site and it'll show you your every step over weeks or months of your life. This is not just creepy because bad people could be tracking you, but it also influences how you're marketed to and what the Google algorithm thinks you are, you know? I mean, we're all now accustomed to Google reading our emails. I mentioned Chicago Mayor Rahm Emanuel in an email one time, and now every advertisement on my sidebar is for kicking children. So Google thought if you like him, you must like this, right? We've all gotten used to that kind of thing, but now you could get the same treatment simply for where you walk. For example, I went inside this store one time. That store one time because I needed some bondage gear to tie up a home intruder he'd gotten into my house. I needed, you know, handcuffs and a few rings for the intruder. Point is, now I've had nothing but ads for nipple clamps for the past 6 months. Nipple clamps chasing me everywhere, which is not entirely undesirable, but everyone needs a break now and again, right? But apparently our federal government is totally down with tracking your every move as long as it's being done by them or someone they're working with. However, if a small business does it, it's a crime. The CEO of an app called Stealth Genie was arrested and indicted this week by the Department of Justice. The app is designed to track someone else's movement and communications without their knowledge. Clearly they arrested him because you can't just jump in on the NSA's racket like that. That is their thing. They have unconstitutional invasion of privacy and warrantless search and seizure down to an art. Like Serena Williams' backhand slice, down to an art. Like this person doing that thing, down to an art. Like Ann Coulter throwing out illogical, bigoted statements designed to grab media headlines, down to an art. Like Simon and Garfunkel after Paul Simon was like, "F this, I'm out of here." Down to an art. And the NSA is about to allow some stupid smartphone app to steal their... is not about to allow some stupid smartphone app to steal their thunder. You get the point. All right. Speaking of the interwebs, a federal appeals court ruled that the popular customer review site Yelp can legally pressure small businesses to purchase advertising by removing positive reviews and promoting negative ones. Here to get to the heart of this matter is senior customer review advocate John F. O'Donnell. All right, John.
What do you see in my eyes, Lee?
Oh, Oreo crumbles?
No, 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 no. In my eyes.
White hot rage.
That's right. And it's directed towards Yelp. I've relied on that app for everything, and it's corrupt. No wonder I've been burned so many times, my man. Wow. Yelp says sushi from this truck is fresher than Outkast's 5th studio album, The Love Below. 5 stars.
Oh, who could have known truck sushi wasn't going to be awesome? Who could have known? So explain this court ruling to us.
Well, the judge decided if Yelp wants to manipulate user reviews to get businesses to pay for advertising, it's not extortion, it's hard bargaining, and it's legal.
But it kind of sounds exactly like extortion.
Yeah, that's because it is. It's like what the mafia does. Hey, you don't want to see positive reviews vanish from your profile. Buy some ads.
Whatever accent you were just doing, you nailed it.
Thank you.
You did.
Thank
Totally
you.
nailed it. But so how does Yelp justify this mafioso behavior?
Well, Lee, they just claim their algorithm filter's been updated. Nobody really knows what that means, so we just move on. You see, Lee, if a corporation if corporations can explain borderline criminal activity in a complicated, nerd-tastic manner, then we just let them go about their business.
Yeah, but there was a class action lawsuit at least.
You know, and rightly so. The Federal Trade Commission received over 2,000 complaints, including an auto repair shop owner who said Yelp sales reps asked him to pay $1,000 a month.
Which is a lot of money for a small business.
It is. And when he refused, Lee, he lost 14 5-star reviews and 30% of his business. I mean, too bad he's an auto repair guy, or else this would be damning news.
What do you mean?
Well, nobody can trust auto repair guys. Come on. They're almost as crooked as art supply store clerks, you know? I've been burned so many times, once again. Hey, do you have Play-Doh?
No.
I was told there'd be Play-Doh!
You got the old Yelp Play-Doh runaround, huh?
Yeah, I did. I mean, they're awful. Yelp CEO, Jeremy Stoppelman, dumped a bunch of personal stock right before all the complaints were revealed, and he made a killing.
That's terrible, but why don't all the small businesses just kind of boycott Yelp if it's so corrupt?
Well, I mean, it's easier said than done. 138 million people use it each month. That's a lot of eyeballs on your business.
So, all right. So, is there any way for people, you know, for Yelp to get Yelp to stop abusing small businesses?
Well, Congress could reform the Communications Decency Act, but until then, we've got to take Yelp reviews with a grain of salt. As you know, I've been burned so many times. Seriously? 5 stars? We're 36 in the world in education. Let's try someplace else. It's ridiculous.
It's true, though.
Ridiculous.
36. In order to believe in American exceptionalism, shouldn't you have to be able to spell it? That's the question.
Yeah, exceptionalism. ACCEPTSHUNALFJISM.
Whatever you were trying to spell there, you nailed it.
Well, thank you. Here's what it is. Companies like Yelp need to remember they're only where they're at because of good faith relationships. The more small businesses that use their platform, the more exposure Yelp gets too.
Yeah, but they're shooting their own business model in the face.
Oh my
you know?
God.
I mean,
oh my God. Wait. A Yelp review just came in about our segment in real time. Oh my God. Okay. Oh, this is nice. Lee has been poised and confident throughout.
Okay.
Pretty cool.
Thanks.
John, however, takes it to a whole new level. He's a national treasure and clearly the breakout star on Redacted. I only wish he would call more. Aunt Florence says hello.
You don't know that person, do you?
Oh, hey, Yelp made me pay $1,000 for that positive mom review.
Telephone dial, everybody! We have to go to a break, but check out this first advertisement. I think if you let it, it could manipulate you heavily, which will be fun for you. We'll be right back. Up until recently, things weren't going very well for me. I had a pain in my back, and I wasn't happy at my job. My wife wouldn't stop nagging me to lose weight, my hair was going limp, and my penis was thinning. The bills just kept piling up. My dog had glaucoma, and my kids were losers. On top of that, I never got to see my grandkids because I don't have any. I was no longer interested in my favorite TV shows. The world seemed depressing, and my cat would not stop pooping. But that's when I discovered that I would likely lose my hearing in 30 to 40 years if I didn't stop using Q-tips at high speed. And my house was built out of asbestos. My feet always hurt, and I was terrible at softball, perhaps the worst to ever play the game. My legs were restless, my hands wouldn't stop twitching, and my parakeet was cheating on me with our neighbor. But that all changed when I discovered pills. Pills solved all my problems, and could solve yours too. That's why over 70% of Americans use them. With pills, you won't think about or feel problems ever again. So ask your doctor about pills. He'll probably just give you some. That's his job. Tell him Patrick sent you.
I'm Marinade. Join me on Boom Bust for in-depth, impartial, and en vogue financial reporting, commentary, interviews, and much, much more. Only on Boom Bust and only on RT. With Russia. Joining me in the now is Professor Robert. Policies.
Consider I'm Peter Lavelle.
A pleasure to have you with us here on RT today. I'm Rory Suchet.
Welcome back! I feel like I've given you enough depressing news from this week, so let's go now to some depressing news from the past. As you probably know, the 2010 Citizens United decision by the Supreme Court has allowed billion-dollar corporations like Koch Industries to dry hump our democracy. It declared that money is speech and corporations have the right to freedom of speech. But of course, that is insane. Money is not speech. You know how you know it's not speech? Because if you stick dollars in your mouth, you can't hardly speak at all right? And it tastes like French fry farts of 1,000 Americans. The Citizens United decision is based on the idea that corporations are people and therefore have a right to freedom of speech. So when did we decide corporations are human beings? Any law student will tell you the Supreme Court decided it way back in 1886 in the case of Santa Clara County versus Southern Pacific Railroad. That's a long time ago. This is a time in America's past when there was no difference between regular people and Amish people. They were all named Jebediah with wacky beards and a butter churn. It was all the same. But it turns out the corporate personhood decision never happened. The Santa Clara decision was about taxes and fence posts, and the Supreme Court never decided on corporate personhood. It was instead written in a headnote to the decision by a court reporter and former president of New York Railway, Bancroft Davis. The headnote says a statement was made by Chief Justice Waite that the court believed corporations are people. However, whether that's exactly what was said or what was meant is a matter of great debate. And furthermore, the Supreme Court has ruled multiple times that headnotes have no legal standing and cannot create precedent for future decisions. So as Tom Hartman details in his book Unequal Protection, the whole thing is either a mistake by a doofus court reporter or a conniving headnote by a railroad industry lackey. Either way, it doesn't have any legal standing, and the Supreme Court has never actually ruled on whether corporations are people. Are you guys getting this? Our democratic republic has been completely exploded, lost to a gaggle of corporate goons, largely because of this personhood lunacy. These corporate zombies eat our resources, control our politicians, and destroy our livelihoods. And it was all based on a fucktard court reporter writing the wrong thing, and then 100 years of devious corporate lawyers going, see, corporations are people. Why are we taking a court reporter doodle seriously? He might have also doodled a unicorn with boobs. That doesn't make them real. We as a nation are basically living our lives as if double D unicorns are walking around everywhere because Bancroft Davis drew one in 1886. This is like finding out the Holocaust happened because someone saw Hitler drinking orange juice and said, watch out, that juice is bad, and Hitler thought he said the Jews are bad. This is infuriating. So yeah, that happened. Now to Wall Street, where those corporate people, known as banks, are reminding us all why we need to invest in pitchforks. Remember when the Wall Street giants were bailed out with billions in taxpayer dollars? Well, AIG is showing how grateful they are by suing taxpayers for giving them a bailout. We go to correspondent Sam Sachs on the redacted front lines.
So who made the 2008 financial crash happen? Well, it was a lot of lords, really. There were the lord mortgage lenders who preyed on people with lucrative subprime mortgages rigged to explode into foreclosures. There were the lord big banks that bought all those exploding mortgages and then, with the help of lord ratings agencies, sold those exploding mortgages to investors. Senator Carl Levin spoke about this issue.
Should Goldman Sachs be trying to sell a deal? Your top priority to sell is that deal. You knew it was a deal. Boy, that Timberwolf was one deal.
There were also the lord robo-signers who forged documents that allowed the banks to kick people out of their homes. And then there was lord AIG, which collected a fee from all the other lords in order to insure all those exploding mortgages for a load of money, giving those other lords peace of mind in their scheme, knowing that if, or when, these exploding mortgages exploded, AIG would pay them for it. Then the exploding mortgages exploded, as exploding mortgages tend to do, and it turns out AIG didn't have the money to cover all the losses. Which is why banks started hemorrhaging cash, and why businesses started laying off workers, and why John and I have been manufacturing what he calls brain busters made out of overheated Hot Pockets and Silly Putty.
It's gonna save us. It's gonna save the world.
And then eating them to deal with our depression. And we all know how this crisis was eventually dealt with. The U.S. government, with the support of the people, seized control of the lord institutions, and then threw in jail or fired all the slimy SOBs who perpetrated this scheme, and then renegotiated all those exploding mortgages to keep Americans in their homes, and then passed new laws to make sure none of this would ever happen again, and then put back to work those unfortunate Americans who lost their jobs by rebuilding the nation's crumbling infrastructure and transitioning to clean, renewable energy, prompting a full-scale military withdrawal from conflict zones around the world. And it was good. Man, this stuff really makes your brain feel weird. That's not how we dealt with it. Turns out there were lords equally. While nationalizing the banks was considered, what actually happened was the government gave all those lords from AIG down hundreds of billions of dollars, and then turned its back on millions of Americans who were fraudulently kicked out of their homes.
Boy, that Timberwolf was one deal.
Add in some special tax breaks worth billions, and the lords of were rich again. And like a mouse with a cookie, something happens when you give a lord money. He asks for a glass of milk, and then 40 billion more dollars. Which is why I'm here at the United States Court of Federal Claims, where former AIG CEO Maurice Greenberg is suing the U.S. government, now claiming that said bailout, which he personally, as well as his shareholders, made a fortune off of, was unconstitutional. And despite the fact that he and his shareholders would have been wiped out in bankruptcy without the bailout, he's asking for another $40 billion from taxpayers in damages. Which means the prophecy is true.
Let it be known, an octogenarian shall receive his day in court and rise up above all others as the lord of them all.
And the anointed Greenberg has the support of his ilk. He's raised several $1 million from Wall Street to fund his case. And he has clown reporters at CNBC actually saying the trial isn't as crazy as you might think. Oh, it is. It is crazy, and Greenberg likely won't win. But something interesting might come from this case. All the lords are reuniting and testifying under oath, meaning we might, for the first time, get some answers. There have been 0 trials examining the financial crisis. Senator Elizabeth Warren made that point at a recent hearing with bank regulators.
That every time there's a settlement and not a trial, it means that we didn't have those days and days and days of testimony about what those financial institutions had been up to.
So it's here where we might finally learn what actually motivated the bailouts, thanks to the audacity of the ultimate lord. You know, I'm starting to like this Maurice Greenberg fellow. It seems like he's got a lot of chutzpah, you know? What? Oh yeah, I'm on Brainbusters. That makes sense. Well, reporting from Washington, D.C., Sam Sachs, Redacted Tonight.
These are your headlines from the future. You might have noticed there's a bit of an Ebola scare going on in the media right now. Sometimes it seems each network is competing to scare us the most. Next week, CNN will run with this. Breaking, Ebola patients spend time in your kitchen. Rub naked butt on your spatulas. It sucks. And on Wednesday of next week, Monsanto molecular engineers point to 1835 Supreme Court note to defend right to create big boob unicorns. On Thursday next week, National Endowment for the Arts seen handing $20 to panhandling Art Garfunkel. That's not fair. This week, for our redacted hashtag, we ask that you tweet your complaints to Yelp. Use the hashtag #GoYelpYourself. Here's ours. Hey, Yelp, that truck sushi you recommended smelled like hate and tasted like punishment. I no longer believe in love or fun. Go Yelp yourself. And that's our show. This episode will be up any minute at youtube.com/RTAmerica and on Hulu. If you want to learn more about anything we've talked about, go to facebook.com/redacted tonight. Good night and keep fighting!